Cam Good here, and we're back with another episode of analyzing the martial arts in Avatar's Netflix adaptation. We are finally halfway done with this first season, and even though I may have had an issue or three along the way, I'm actually having a really good time with the show so far after those first two. And it turns out that going in blind was one of the best choices I ever could have made, because in episode 5, they made a change to one of the original show's most least interesting characters that is so batshit insane, I'm surprised it wasn't cut harder than my 1-inch punch. But that's enough anticipation. It's time to bow in, so we can get spirited away. Okay, you know we're hitting the ground running with episode 5 when the opening shot has the Net Gang in the middle of a nice little chase scene.
How many are there?
5, 6!
Per usual, Aang's airbending doesn't exactly have a lot of martial substance to it, and I'm not exactly a fan of the CGI boomerang throw, but the fast-paced editing actually picks up the slack here. See this? This is a good example of using fast-paced editing to your advantage because it ends up giving the whole scene a sense of urgency. And the excitement caps off with Katara biting Bumi's rock disc technique, and it's actually explained in-universe that earthbending is where she stole the idea from.
It's something I saw the Earthbenders do. Thought I'd try a waterbender version.
This works for me quite well, because even though she's a lot more boring in this adaptation, Katara is the only character we see that is regularly practicing throughout the show so far. So I kinda like the idea that as a waterbender, she's not above borrowing and adapting skills from other cultures and bending style. It's just very Bruce Lee, and I love it. But what I think I like even more is the setup.
Hey, how was I supposed to know she was a Fire Nation soldier?
Don't know about you guys, but I can totally buy Sokka trying to rizz up a Fire Nation girl on accident. I still would have loved to see that scene actually happen, though. But before we can even get to the next fight scene, as you can tell, I've changed up the format a little bit. You see, before I got this lovely new Rode mic and the wall-o green screen behind me, I pretty much just addressed the story beats along the way to the action sequences. But now that I have less wires and more freedom, I can address everything in a much more visually entertaining way. At least for me. Basically, I'm just going to be jumping around now, unless there's something particularly interesting to talk about. And wouldn't you know it, there is.
And Azula. Xiao didn't discover the Avatar, Zuko did.
I may be alone here, but personally, I think the change-up between Ozai and Azula's relationship is fantastic. This is using the adaptation to your advantage. Because I frankly do not care who is in charge of the adaptation this time around. Nobody's gonna do better than the original. So you may as well bring your own original vision to it. And in my opinion, having Ozai stand up for his son and in the same breath put his daughter down does wonders for establishing a new dynamic here.
He's the one who displayed resilience and dedication. That's what I expect from a future heir. Not self-serving flattery and coy whispers.
I also think it makes him a fair bit more interesting and nuanced compared to the original. I'm also a huge fan of this adaptation of June. She does really great, and I kinda knew this introduction was gonna be good from the way it was framed. But I'll tell you one intro that caught me completely off guard, and that's Wan Shi Tong's.
That is one big birdie.
Birdie, I am no birdie. I am the spirit of knowledge itself.
Didn't expect that one. Hope it means they didn't cut the library episode for season 2. But now I've got to go over this little action scene between Azula and her teacher.
It's enough! The lesson is over, Azula!
So, I understand that vanilla-flavored Azula was a spicy little badass that sounded like a 30-year-old.
No Avatar, huh? Well, that's okay. Any friend of the Avatar is an enemy of mine.
But, just a wild idea here, maybe play to your actress's strengths instead. Because, I don't buy this. And that's not just because the camera is filmed so close, you can't really see what they're doing. Because let's be honest here, everyone, this is just directed flailing. But it's also because you expect me to believe that this young woman can grab a grown-ass adult and just throw him to the ground with one hand.
Azula, you're the best. Everybody knows that. You're perfect.
It's not good enough.
I'm sorry, Ty Lee, but Azula's right. She is not good enough in this adaptation. At least at martial arts. This is literally what she was doing if you pulled the camera back. Here's part 2. Like, what do you want from me? She literally grabs here, throws this weird, gross, chop-looking thing, then parries the grab, and suddenly his arm just disappears so that she can just reach over and grab his collar. Needless to say, there is no stance work or technique being done here, except maybe the one Pak Sao, if that was actually what they were trying to do with this. How am I not supposed to shit on you? And more importantly, how am I supposed to believe that Azula thinks she's better than Zuko? This is exactly what I was worried about a couple of episodes ago when they introduced Azula and her squad. This character straight up can't have the same physical prowess that this one does because the actress is unfamiliar with the physical disciplines required. So the second that they decided to cast her, they needed to write around that. Going by this version of the show, Zuko is objectively the best fighter in it. And it's not even close. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and jump over to Zuko real quick, because I don't know about you, but I could definitely use a laugh after that disappointing Azula nonsense.
The street players in these parts are quite good.
I'm sure they are. Now, let's go.
These guys are adorable. Also, damn, this June is awesome. Talk about great casting. And another Texan, let's go. Gotta say, I'm killing it with these segues, because now we gotta join the other Texan, where he ends up getting separated from the rest of the gang when Heibai scares them all away. I didn't mean me.
Pain. Pain. So much pain.
Actually, they're just scratches.
Leave it to Sokka to flirt with a fox, man. Hold up. That's Yue? What the fuck is this show anymore? All of you in the comments left out the fact that Yue had a whole fox mode. Be honest with me, which one of you guys looked at this character here and thought, you know what she needs? A fucking persona, bro. That is literally insane. How is this not brought up more often? The whole idea sounds like a shit post, dude, and it got approved. People looked at this script and said, yeah, you know what, that'll work. Executives signed off on this shit. What's fucking next? Is Iroh gonna turn into a literal dragon in the spirit world? Because now that I'm saying it out loud, that sounds pretty damn tough. I don't mean to keep harping about this, but that idea is so insane to me that I can't even be mad at it. This is hilarious. Even though, in my opinion, Yue probably should have been a rabbit, since, you know, every culture that Avatar borrows from heavily associates rabbits with the moon. But from where I'm splitting, I'm just an idiot. What do I know? Because I sure as hell can't guess where this show can go anymore. At the very least, I'm incredibly thankful that I went into this show one episode at a time. My only regret being that I wish I'd filmed my initial reaction, because I actually cried. I was laughing so hard. And then we cut from furry Yue to a heart-wrenching scene where we watch Katara's mom get roasted on camera. And then we also find out that in this adaptation, Sokka's dad is disappointed in him because apparently he bombed on his ice dodging test.
You don't have to make excuses for him. I'd hoped when he really had to prove himself that he'd do better.
This is yet another interesting change from the original that nobody talks about. Dude, this show is a roller coaster. And now Gyatso's back.
Gyatso?
And I guess Ko is too, ? Unfortunately, the episode pretty much ends after this bit. And even though we get glimpses of Azula training deep into the night, which does wonders for characterizing her, it doesn't actually clear up the disconnect between how good the writing says she is compared to what we actually see on screen. I'm sorry, but Elizabeth Yu's skills just don't match how good they're telling us Azula is. Whatever this is, it ain't Xiao. No wonder you don't think you're getting better. Damn, poor girl. But as I mentioned, we've reached the end of episode 5, and we kinda only talked about 1 or 2 little action beats. And I'm not entirely sure on how to end this video. Well, you know, this script is only 4 pages long, and I'm having such a fun time with the new format and these episodes that, you know what? We're just gonna go ahead and run through episode 6 while we're here. I know that's not a super big surprise, considering I gave that twist away in the title, but who cares? Let's bow in for round 2. Episode 6 begins with Zuko losing control of his ship and Iroh setting up that we're gonna get the Scar flashback later on in the runtime before cutting over to Aang, who grossly misreads the situation with the Fire Sages.
My name is Aang, and I'm here to visit the Shrine of Avatar Roku. Wait!
And damn it, I still hate seeing this Chi Blast stuff all these episodes later. If there was just a little more extension and drama in their poses, I think I'd give it a pass, since that's what Dallas ends up doing a lot as Zuko. But without better stances, it's still a glaring issue in the show's representation of martial arts. We gotta move on though, and originally I was planning on just skipping to the next fight because I was worried about how big this episode could get. But I just gotta gush real quick. I adore this version of Roku.
Hop on one leg?
And he makes fun of Kyoshi?
Kyoshi has always been kind of...
This is my goat.
But like Kyoshi, I am here to aid you in your journey. Anything you need.
It has to do with Ko.
Anything but that.
That's just hilarious. And immediately after this, the next scene where June hands over Aang to Zuko is also fun.
You know why?
Because if there's any missing, you'll come after us?
Because you're so cute.
No, you guys are cute. Damn. Can I just say that nobody told me episode 6 was this great? Even the directing takes a step up. Look at this transition here between Zuko and his past self.
The Earth Kingdom's forces are concentrated along the southern coast.
The camera spinning around him as he takes it all in really helps sell how big of a deal this is to the poor kid. This is great stuff, guys.
What would you do?
Your Highness, I would suggest...
Not you. Zuko.
Huh?
Oh, and Daddy Ozai's gonna put our boy on the spot too. Okay, I'm getting some pretty good character dynamics here, and dare I say it, it's setting up this Scar pretty well. And it just keeps getting better, because right after the flashback ends, Aang, Iroh, and Zuko get ambushed by Xiao and his forces, with most of them hitting genuine martial arts stances. Although to be fair, some of these guys look like they're halfway between Fire Nation and Putty Patrol.
And if he finds out...
But the Avatar
is lost! For now!
Do you see now what I mean when I say Zuko's story has all of the good drama in it? I can't be the only one who cares more about Zuko's struggles than Aang rescuing the siblings, right? And you know what? Even if Xiao's a bit extra in this version, I still think he works. The fact that he does this big speech on what is basically a wooden box just makes it all the more goofy. Although I'm not entirely sure that was intentional.
We will praise the glory of the Fire Nation!
But now it's finally time for the Blue Spirit, and wouldn't you know it, everything is on point here. I gotta ask though, did anybody else think that Zuko's new Shuang Dao looked more like the painting Guardian curved swords from Dark Souls? I don't know, but I actually compete paired sabers in Wushu, and I can tell you right now that his handles are entirely too long compared to the originals, and the blade is way shorter than it should be. I mean, it still looks cool, right? Just different. We've got to talk about the escape sequence, though. The boys finally get to pop the hell off here, and it's so nice to finally see it. Alright, I'm not sure how many people know this, but in Wushu Dao Lu, we have some routines known as duels, and they're basically highly choreographed fight scenes between 2 or more people. And I gotta tell you, it's really cool to see that incorporated into this show on both Zuko and Aang's choreography here. This is probably the most authentic when it comes to martial arts in this season, and the only part I actively dislike is this gross little CGI shot here. And I'm sorry, Netflix Azula, but this episode just makes it even harder to believe that you're supposed to be better than Zuko.
The lesson is over,
Anyways, it all wraps up with a decent palm shot from Xiao, and I'm so glad they went hard as fuck on the Blue Spirit episode. Notice though that your boy Cam was onto something here. No, not that. When they don't have to worry about balancing the elements of nature and how that affects the fight and the environment, they can really choreograph something sick. And you know what else? They capitalized on exactly what I was hoping they would. It shouldn't be any surprise to my viewers that even though I much prefer the original, I would rather the live-action adaptations change a whole bunch of stuff than stick to the exact story and characters of the cartoon, provided it's for the better, right? While Avatar the Last Airbender is probably my favorite American cartoon, there are still some parts that I think could have been done better or expanded. And I'm not talking about the Great Divide, I'm talking about little things like this.
My teachers made me practice every morning. I wasn't allowed to do any fight training until I had done 100 vertical strokes and 100 horizontal.
Me too.
When it comes to character work, I live for scenes like this, and I wish we had more of it in the original show because, damn, if this is pretty good, imagine how perfect the cartoon would have made it. It even ends with a nice Bagua movement from Aang. Then we transition from one great moment to another as we get to see the Agnik Kai between father and son.
Rise.
No, please, Father.
Rise!
I know a couple of episodes back I was worried they'd make it into a whole thing, but you know what? This show is honestly different enough that I'm glad it's expanded to more than just a kid getting tortured in front of a crowd while his sister gets off on it.
And suffering will be your teacher.
And you know what? Even ignoring all of that character stuff, this fight is fucking awesome. We open with a quick spinning hook kick and a few swipes. While yes, caster hands is still fucking obnoxious, we get enough diversity in the movements that I can forgive it here. After Zuko parts the Red Sea, we get a nice one-arm cartwheel into a raise that is unfortunately way too cramped to see well. And then we see Zuko try to close in on the old man, only to be thrown aside after some quick infighting.
Give me everything!
Pause.
We then transition into a tornado kick, step over hook, scoot, then cowboy punch that Ozai no-sells. We get a little more anime with the completely unenthused Fire Lord toying with his son, only to be irritated when Zuko throws his one opening. Even though there are some admittedly cliche moments in this fight, I'm willing to forgive it because of the context between these two characters. Ozai is clearly not trying here, and Zuko is not only inexperienced, but also clearly hesitant to cook his old man. Say it with me, everybody. Context matters. Always. This leads to my favorite piece of choreography in the entire show so far, right here. This was a goddamn 1-inch punch. It's not exactly a secret that I adore the Bruce Lee philosophy. Hell, I'm certified under Guro Nasanto, so it should be no surprise at all that this is my favorite piece of choreography in the entire show. And I just gotta tell you guys, I really wish I knew who choreographed this episode so that I could personally shout them out for every other episode that follows. This was fantastic. Anyways, it's time to cap off this wonderful fight scene with Ozai dragon clawing the scar onto Zuko's face. You want to talk about another great choice? Ozai here. Personally, this Ozai feels a lot more human to me, and I know a lot of people liked him as the big bad monster of the original show with minimal development.
If you have any real courage, you'll stick around until the sun comes out.
But I genuinely appreciate that we now have two different takes that are equally valid.
You must be willing to give up the weak to make yourself strong. That is what makes us the Fire Nation. That is why we sacrifice the 41st Division. That is what you must
do.
There's a lot of problems with this Netflix adaptation, but Ozai ain't one of them.
Sometimes you just have to give them a chance.
I have made a mistake.
God-awful slow-mo wire work is, though. Yeesh. At least, the episode ends on a good note, with the final bits of Zuko's banishment and the crew bowing at his return.
Attention! Our prince has returned. Up!
These moments are where the show excels at, and this wasn't in the original. At this point, I feel reasonably confident and secure in my belief that it's okay to have these different versions as long as they're exactly that. Different. I actually love some of these changes, even the goofy UA furry mode. The original UA sucked, but at least this one made me laugh. No, the world isn't nearly as cleanly established as the original, but it is set up enough to allow for a bunch of different scenes, expansions, and alterations to the original storylines. Some parts are much better, looking at you, Lieutenant G, and some parts are worse. So much worse. But it's also not like this is ever gonna be the definitive version of Avatar. That is, and always will be, the cartoon. So did I leave anything out? Did I manage to say something mildly coherent about these fight scenes, or were all of my takes completely off base for this adaptation? Per usual, let me know what you think down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you want more analysis of martial arts and media. Also, tell me what you think of the new format change. I know I had a lot of fun personally because I feel like I can express myself more freely. Either way, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'm bowing out. And I'll see you all in the North Pole.